This is All India Radio. Welcome to Science Serial Whispers of the Wind. All India Radio, in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar, presents Science Serial Whispers of the Wind, based on understanding and managing climate change and global warming. Episode number 1, Curtain Raiser. Participating experts are Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director, Vigyan-Prasar; Dr. Somnath Vaidya-Roy, Associate Professor, Atmospheric Science Center, Indian Institute of Technology, New Delhi; and Dr. Virendra Kumar Tyagi, Senior Scientist and Coordinator of the Science Serial. The moderator of this program is Manoj Mainkar. Let us now listen to the curtain raiser of the Science Serial, Whispers of the Wind.
For those listeners who are concerned with issues such as global warming and climate change, or for listeners who are even remotely interested in knowing new developments in terms of global warming and climate change, All India Radio has always been with you with a variety of programs. And one such endeavor has always been the science serials that have been extremely popular and interactive that All India Radio has done in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar. There are exciting times ahead as we are about to embark upon another journey of this kind. We are about to start a new serial aptly titled Whispers of the Winds. What the winds tells us, what we get to know from the winds. And as a curtain raiser, if I may say so, I'm joined in the studios of All India Radio by an esteemed panel. I'd like to introduce, first of all, Dr. Somnath Vaidya-Roy, Associate Professor, Center for Atmospheric Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi; Dr. Nakul Parashar, who is the Director of Vigyan-Prasar, and a new entrant, if I may say so, to this panel here; and of course, the veteran Dr. B.K. Tyagi, Senior Scientist, Vigyan-Prasar, and who's been the coordinator of not just this, but all other serials that we have had over a period of many years now. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So, listeners, we are in good company, and not just in terms of gentlemen, but also in terms of relevant days just gone by. The World Water Day, whose theme has been Leaving No One Behind, and of course the International Day of Forests, where the theme was Forests and Education. In a way, these things are also linked to the larger picture that we are about to discuss. Dr. Tyagi, I'd like to begin with you. There have been many serials earlier which have been extremely popular with our listeners, which has been very evident from the kind of letters and the emails that we got. For those listeners who've just joined in, would you like to throw some light on the effective success that these science serials generated over the last few years?
I think we are on air since 2008 very regularly, I think in the form of mega serials. And the number of episodes range from 26 to 52. So that means the whole year, once a week, we have a dose of those scientific information in a docudrama format. And we found like this is the most interesting and most acceptable format. The audience is not only the students or the science learner, the common man, and that's why like the program is conceived and designed in such a way that it's not a direct information giving or receiving.
So it's palatable for even the common...
Yes. And that's the interesting part is that if we see the feedback of last radio serials, the letters which we are receiving, it's not the majority of letters are from the common people who is a 45 years of age, working as a farmer or working as a laborer and listening to our program. They said like they got a information or some new things which was not in their anticipation earlier. Despite that, they are using it and doing it. So for the first time they understood the rationality, or you can say the basis for that effect which we are talking through our programs. In fact, this the new serial which as you said, the title is the Whispers of Wind, and Hindi we call it a Badalti Fizai. It is a, you can say, the third of the series of, you can say, of the trilogy. The first was on this understanding the science of disasters, which was also, you can say, a offshoot of climate change and global warming. And then the second was on sustainable development. Means like how we can make this earth more as a planet to be sustained through the resources which it is capable of giving. So we should take only that much which can be according to the bearing capacity of the earth. And now third is this how we through the human intervention we have been able to change the the environment and our immediate surroundings. Somewhere these changes are very high and somewhere it is less. But the latest research trend is showing that since the last 50 years, whatever we have done to our planet Earth is
Whatever
really,
we have done, all of us
yes.
together.
And if this trend will continue and for another 25 years, I think then we will be at a point of no return. So I think we have to take a word of caution. We have to adopt certain do's and don't. And government is also had a lot of things to tackle, to mitigate and adapt these changes are going on, and how we can involve the common people in the successful implementation of those initiatives. So that's why the basic premise or the basic objective of this program, starting from this the disaster management to climate change and global warming, you can find a continuity.
Dr. Somnath Baidyaraj, I just realized 3 of us from this panel are still wearing either jackets or light coats. What's happening to the weather? I mean, isn't it unusual for this time of the year in the northern part of the country, of course? What's happening?
It's very true. But first, let me say, thank you for having me. It's like meeting again, seeing you, seeing Dr. Tyagi. It's like a reunion of old friends. We are
It's a
chatting
pleasure.
away, and also very
Welcoming
excited to
Nakulji.
meet Nakulji here. Yeah, this winter has been remarkable. I mean, this winter in the northern India, to the best of my knowledge, is the wettest winter that we have had so far. And then suddenly, in the span of I think I will tell you this: the day I put away my room heater, that was the day I turned my fan on. And this kind of a drastic transition has not happened. And you are right that we are dressed. Some of us are dressed for the winter, and some of us are dressed for the summer. And all we see that there is no sign of spring. So this is, we still don't know. This year it's a neutral and some of us have heard about El Nino, which is a global phenomenon, weather phenomenon. So this year is a neutral El Nino year. So that probably has some impact on this kind of wetness. I think a good sign could be normal to above normal monsoons, but please don't take my word for it. I am no expert, but IMD will soon come out with a forecast.
But I think I want to intervene. To what extent this the prolonged winter can be seen as a seasonal variation within the climatic pattern? Because this is also not for the first time. I think if we look at in 2015, if I'm correct, we had that year also we have those prolonged winters. I think it was up to mid-April. We had one day the temperature was high and again it was raining and again the temperature is coming down. So
interesting observation actually. So I personally I would not call it like a prolongation of the winter, because I mean the reason we are feeling cold is all these storms that are coming. So all of these rainfall that happens in India beyond the purview of the monsoon, these are because of a particular phenomenon called western disturbances. They go through enter through Pakistan and then they go across Bangladesh into Assam, and typically the environment is very dry here, so we don't get any rain. And it's only maybe when it reaches West Bengal, then it picks up some moisture from the Bay of Bengal and rains out. But this typically happens in Bengal it's called Kal Boishakhi, means in the month of Baisakh. That is in mid-April, which is almost few weeks away from now, almost 3 weeks away. But it's very strange that we are getting Kal Baisakhi in February in northern India. So clearly a lot of these kinds of things have changed. This is obviously a very anomalous year. It is not because of the temperature per se, but because of where is all this energy coming from suddenly in the environment, that what used to be a almost imperceptible storm, now it is creating producing so much rain to the extent that depressing or reducing temperatures and a cold weather that persists for several days. So I am as baffled as you you are, but it could be signs of ominous signs of things to come.
I'd like to welcome Dr. Nakul Parashar. Nakulji, before we move on to expectations and your focus on the new serial that we are about to begin, just one question. You've been to various places abroad. You've stayed for a long part of your life outside India. Just a small comment on the way the international community looks at our larger subject, that is global warming and climate change.
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure for me to be here, hearing all three of you on different aspects of climate change, perceptions, ideas, thoughts, experiences, and above all, how we connect our thoughts with people who would love to understand and hear. From a perspective that you've sought my idea with regards to people, how they perceive climate change across the world. In Europe, they have a different perception. People in the US, within US on the East Coast have a different perspective. Those who live in the central time zone have a different perspective. Those in the mountain zone have a different perspective. And absolutely those who live by the Pacific have a different perspective. An interesting question, and I've got different perspectives to it. It might seem as if there are 6 blind people touching an elephant. Common men, when we talk to them about climate, weather change, they all seem to be ignorant about the real facts that science can explain. So they have their own superstitions, they have legacies that they have learned and heard. Whatever their grandmas would have narrated them while they go to sleep, stories about how climate have changed. One thing for sure, like Professor Vaidyanathan spoke about wearing the jackets and his room heater going off, has the same kind of a connotation that people across the world have. So the moment there is a little bit of change in the climate, I see people coming out in their tees, in their shorts, running across, despite the fact that they are ignorant of the fact that tomorrow it might snow again, there might be loads of ices around, but the moment they see sun, they find it very happy about it. But they realize that France, for that matter, has seen a number of deaths when the temperatures rise. Similarly, on the contrary, people, as I said, they get into their tees and shorts despite the fact they see sun, start running around. But the fact is, we have all noticed that temperatures all over the world might record, say, 5 degrees Fahrenheit, but it says it feels like 2 degrees. So there's always difference between what that is there on the scale and what you feel. And we all go by how we feel. So all of this radical changes that we understand and experienced has been a global phenomenon. We see people who live by the oceans, as we've all heard, that it's mostly because of disturbances. Like it's not about being as rightly said by you, Professor, that this is a neutral El Nino year, right? And we all know that there isn't much that has an effect due to El Nino, but there are facts like storms, western disturbances that make. So in totality, what I've gathered and what I've understood it, that people have understood, people have started feeling it. And as they said, unless you feel it, you don't tell it. So people have started feeling it, they've started echoing it. And it's despite the fact that as we go along and we'll talk about, there are 2 different thoughts about whether this is actually a global warming or not. But on the ground, for the people, our listeners who are all laymen, all people from the general public, we all are experiencing it. And the tilt towards, how much was that? 99.7. Yeah. So that was a startling figure that we all, are bound to accept. And on this note, I think the perception worldwide is unanimous that yes, winds of change, the whispers from the wind are very clear. They are loud and clear now that yes, there's a great change in the climate. There's a great change in the daily pattern of how weather changes. It's been erratic. It has to some extent become a challenge for people who forecast. We at Vigyan-Prasar, who've been in existence for 30 years, are housed in countries' medium range weather forecasting building. And we come across scientists who keep discussing, debating across the corridors about these changes. So much more as we go along in this discussion, we'll be happy to discuss and talk about it. Thank you so much.
Just the right moment to discuss global warming and climate change in a new way as we are planning to start this new serial. I'll come to you, Dr. Tyagi. This question is in fact to both of you, Dr. Parashar also. What exactly we looking at through the medium of this new serial, Whispers of the Winds, its focus, its structure, what exactly are we looking at?
When we be discussed among the scientific community, because looking at the whole thing, we had certain, there is a way of doing that science where we can say that change is happening. But when it comes to at a perceptible limit, or how you feel it, among the common masses, that still a confusion is there. This kind of question, if the average temperature will rise 1 degree or 2 degree, how it going to affect us? So this was the premise on which we try to build up the entire sequencing of the episodes, like understanding the science of climate change, and as a result how this global warming is happening, and how this 1 degree or 2 degree of average rising of the temperature is going to affect the entire this weather system and the climatic pattern exponentially, especially if the glaciers are melting. It is going to result into the rising of the sea level. So the people who are living at the coastal area, where they will go? So that's why this new term, global warming refugees, is now being discussed, where we will settle those people. And also that impact or that feel is different at different places. Like if we look at India as a country whole, we have this Himalayan region, there the impact will be different. We have a coastal area where the impact and consequences will be different. And we have a landlocked states, there the impact will be different. So our entire strategy, either to adapt it or to mitigate it, it will be different. So entire Asia itself is in a very most vulnerable condition as compared to Europe and America. And India, because of its geological and this geographical location, it has its own uniqueness and is going to have a altogether different kinds of problem. So how we take along people? So it is only like if they have to take an informed decision about this aspect, they should know the science of climate change. And also then there are different voices are coming. There are a group of people who are saying it's all statistical gimmick, there is nothing like climate change, and it's a periodic cyclic process. So how to convince to the people? So it is that's why, like being a science program, we are trying to give the hardcore science, its implications in terms of its how it will affecting the society. So all those aspects which has been taken, and how the world community is looking at it, the entire this climate change and global warming, and at international level, what is the institutional framework has emerged in terms of conventions, treaties and agreements, and how India has responded to the call of this climate change and global warming in terms of having this national plan for climate change and global warming, under which we have 8 missions, and each mission has its own different priority and emphasis. And the success of these missions, as I told you, India has this like all the region will having a different impact. So different strategies, different approaches of planning, implementation will be required, and without the involvement of common people, we cannot achieve the success. So they should also be convinced with this that this is a reality. So it's this was the focus of this program in terms of not only understanding that science, but also the initiative which has been taken nationally or internationally, we should be part of it. So there's the whole idea of this program.
Dr. Baidyroy, I'm tempted to ask you this question. Dr. Parashar just mentioned a very interesting figure, 99.7. What was that division that he was referring to?
Yes, also...
Is there a difference of opinion? Tyagirji also mentioned.
This is an interesting, because, for our listeners, we were just having this discussion prior to the commencement of the show, that there is indeed, it appears, if you go out and talk to people, there is indeed a difference in opinion that whether is there any global warming, because if you think about it, a lot of people will say that this winter was pretty cold and it extended well into March, and so how can you talk about global warming? And this is a very common refrain that first, like people often make as Parashar said, that cannot distinguish clearly between weather, which is day-to-day variability, and climate. Suddenly if there is a cold day, people will say, where is my global warming?
So one entire segment of our 52 episode, we are focusing on how to differentiate between weather and climate as a concept.
I think that will be a very, very interesting and valuable program, and I'm looking forward to listening to it, of course, myself. Now, so because of this, people have been trying to estimate, and often you will see that there are scientists who contradict this notion of global warming. And so there is, and often that particular contrarian voice gets disproportionately larger share of the air time, and it's made to appear that there are actually two kind of competing opinions here. So because of this, periodically this exercise is taken is to actually go out and quantify what do scientists think. And in a recent study published in Nature, it turns out that 99.7% of scientists who are involved in earth, atmospheric, earth sciences, environmental sciences, other kinds of geosciences, 99.7% of them are convinced. It's not a belief, it's convinced by looking at the evidence that the global climate is warming. So that's where this very interesting number comes from.
Yeah, so that very well clearly proves and supports that not only seeing is believing, but feeling is believing as well. And of course this year, for that matter, has been cold. It's not been cold here, but it has been cold in all parts of the world. So it's been snowing heavily in places where people never thought of seeing snow. It was ironical to see pictures of hailstorm that happened here in Delhi, and people had taken pictures of them and posted on WhatsApp, and it appeared as if it was snowing in Delhi.
Right.
So
I thought it was a lift from a Canadian street or something.
right, but
The most interesting part was it was confined only to a sector of Noida only. It was not. It has
Correct,
covered a
correct.
very short area.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, in any case, this series to impart required knowledge to a common man today about how all of this is happening would certainly be a welcome one. And I guess we'll have more and more listeners, we'll have more and more responses to it. And I presume you have a part of your serial where you'll have episodes where you'll have questions from audiences as well. If something more you could talk about it.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the interesting part is it's not only like we are putting up two questions at the end of each episode, and we invite the correct answer, and that answer is itself is hidden somewhere in the episode. which
Oh wow,
is
that's
the-
wonderful.
yeah.
That makes it more interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And second is like now I come to the science communication part, or because one objective is to nurturing and enhancing the scientific temperament, and one of that attribute is asking questions. So generally, mentally, we are trained to answer the question, not in coining the new question. So wherever a such question is being asked by the listener, that is also part of our discussion. We have kept some prizes also for what you can say for that question itself, not for answering the question, but question itself.
So if I may just add a
Sure,
quick thing here, that when I was in this show with Tyagiji last year, you may also recall, we used to get questions from, I recall a question from like a little girl on soil salinization.
Yes.
And so the kinds of questions, these are questions coming from little children, maybe in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade.
In a remote part of
In
India.
a remote part of like some rural area. And these are questions that typically we would discuss in a IIT Delhi classroom.
Wow.
And so it was fascinating and very inspiring for
Very
me
good.
to be a part of this kind of an activity.
Very interesting, and
Yes.
I think it's a great step. And the more you motivate, the more you give them awards, the more you get them certificates, I think will prompt more listeners to come forward.
I want to give this information to our listener that we are developing a special hands-on kit also on to understand the climate change and global warming through our engagement process. So hands-on try.
Okay.
So certain concept which we are trying to communicate through the serial in a docudrama format. They can also have that kit, provided they can give the correct answer for the question,
that's
or they can ask that thought-provoking question for which there is no ready-made answer. That was the only.
Interesting.
So it's not just the answer for which you get an award, you also get an award for coining a new question.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
yeah,
really
yeah,
nice.
We're coming to the concluding phase of the program. I'd like to end with Dr. Baideroy. You are in direct touch with, we referred to a small girl writing on soil salinization. You also deal with students, but they're not small kids, they're grown-up kids. How is their response to the entire thing? How do they look at it?
So I personally think that, if I may take a step back and add a broader perspective to this as an educator, that I find like kids to be extremely, as Parashadji said, that have that scientific temperament, in the sense asking questions, being curious. You show them something new, they always ask, why is this happening? And also another very important thing is skepticism, right? So this is something that I see this in kids all the time. But on the other hand, I personally think that like as they keep on, I'm not on talking about grown-ups, but obviously grown-ups we get dazed by a lot of things, but this pressure of pursuing a particular career and these competitive exams which come in the form of like preparing for notes which have specific answers, and that requires you to kind of shut that window, the window that opens you out into the bigger world. Shut that window and just memorize known answers to known questions. Hopefully this program will play a small yet meaningful role where people will be answering questions, providing answers, and also prompt them, encourage them to ask questions. So I think this will play I'm hopeful, and I think not only this particular program, and there should be more programs like this that allow us to continue building that scientific temperament.
I guess well begun is half done, but I think this is much beyond that. And what Professor Baidyanath rightly said, I think it's invoking the spirit of a scientific temper within each of us.
Yes.
And this is a great initiative. So I wish this program, organizers, a great success.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. The studio clock is trying to be a killjoy, but that's the way it is. We've come to the end of this wonderful discussion, very illuminating discussion that we had. Gentlemen, thank you very much for sparing time to come to the studios of All India Radio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whispers of the Wind. You are listening to the first episode of the science serial Whispers of the Wind, produced by All India Radio in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar, Curtain Raiser. Participating experts were Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director Vigyan-Prasar, Dr. Somnath Vaidya-Roy, Associate Professor, Atmospheric Science Center, Indian Institute of Technology, New Delhi, and Dr. Virendra Kumar Tyagi, Senior Scientist and Coordinator of the Science Serial. The moderator of this program was Manoj Mainkar. So listeners, we now have 2 questions for you. The lucky winner will get attractive prizes from Vigyan-Prasar. Question number 1 is, what is global warming? And the second question is, what is climate change? You can send your answers by simple post. Our address is Science Serial Whispers of the Wind, All India Radio, room number 615, New Broadcasting House, Sansad Marg, New Delhi 110001. You can also write on our email ID radio@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Please do write or mail us your full name, age and profession. If associated with any science club, do let us know the membership of your club. If you have any query or question, do not hesitate to write to us. We will be back again with the next episode of Science Serial Whispers of the Wind. Same day, same time, next week. Till then, goodbye.